I'm Nicole Hill. This is my note card for my speech. And today I have Mark Dennison,
Hello.
Jared Robinson,
Hello.
and Maddie Horn,
Hello.
all listening to my speech today. My specific purpose statement is to inform my audience on how Johann Gutenberg's invention of the printing press really advanced technology and society for the better. Now, if you have ever had any form of education, specifically high school or college, you've more than likely had to have typed a paper and submitted it to your professor or teacher. Without that, you would use something like a printer. I've had the luxury of being able to use a printer to print out many papers for my teachers before. And all of this is thanks to Johann Gutenberg for inventing the printing press. And without him, none of that would ever be possible. So the printing press has actually been around for a long time before Johann. It was actually first made in 600 AD by the Chinese. And they would take wooden blocks and they would rub them onto paper and it would create the text they had. Now, they would get a little confusing because the Chinese text, a lot of their characters and symbols looks a lot alike. So one symbol would get mistaken for another, and a lot of their text would get very confused. But the English language was a perfect candidate for it. So around the 15th century, a lot of books weren't being made because they were having to be handwritten, and it takes a long time to handwrite multiple copies of books. So a lot of the population in Europe was very illiterate because most of the population couldn't afford to buy books since they were very expensive because there wasn't a lot around. That's when businessman Gutenberg realized how much money he could be making off of creating multiple copies of books. So he made his own model of the printing press, which was much simpler and a lot less time consuming. And they would arrange letters on a tray and they would stamp it onto pieces of paper. But what was different with Johann's, rather than the Chinese, is that they could do this continuously, and they would make multiple copies of that page. So they would do that for each page, and although it would take longer than now today, it was still much faster than handwriting books. So they were able to make lots and lots of copies of books. The first mass printing that Johann had made was actually 200 copies of the Bible in 1455. This became very successful in Europe, and not long after he invented this, lots of people were started hearing about it. So Johann was actually a huge success even after his death in 1468. Although he died poor because of the legal battle he had with his business partner, he was still a huge success and books were being mass-produced all over the world. Literary rates went way up and the price of books went way down. This actually started the Renaissance era and was a huge part of advancing it because people had more access to knowledge and were able to advance technology and science a whole lot better with this access of knowledge. Martin Luther was actually nailed his 95 Theses to the door of the church, and he had multiple copies made because of the printing press. This is just one early example of how the printing press has been able to help advance technology in society. Without the printing press, we would be a completely different society. Today, in all over the world, people would be less literate, and without the printing press, we wouldn't have been able to jumpstart the Renaissance era, which many arts and sciences and technology came from that era. So without one invention like the printing press, our society would be hundreds of years back in time without that. So today I have covered how the printing press actually came around way before Gutenberg's time, how Gutenberg saw the chance he could take to make money, and so he made his own version of the printing press, how even after his passing he was a huge success because the printing press spread all over the world, and how people had more access to the knowledge that were being printed in books, that they were able to advance society and science and art and everything else that got advanced in the Renaissance era. And without the printing press, we would be a completely different society and we would not have anything that we have nowadays. Thank you for listening to my speech.